noticed something. Some time back, a young astute man by the name of Chris Summers had a video of him being pulled up by a Queensland police officer, and he asked for the proclamation date that gave the Queensland police officer the right to pull him over and check him for a breath test.
I told you, you've been detained for the purpose of a roadside breath test. If you fail
am I under arrest or am I free to go?
Are you going to comply with
Am I under arrest or am I free to go?
Are you going to comply with
Am
my
I
breath
under
test?
arrest or am I free to go?
You can be under arrest if you like.
I'm not consenting,
yours.
mate, I'm not consenting to anything. I'm asking you a simple question which you won't answer. Am I under arrest or am I free to go?
You've been intercepted for the purpose of a roadside breath test.
Am I under arrest
I
or
require you
am
to
I
provide
free to
specimens for the
go?
purpose of a breath test. If you fail to provide breath test, you can be arrested.
Am I under arrest or am I free to go?
You can
Have
be-
I broken a law? Is there a law that I've broken
the law
right now?
says you must provide a specimen of breath. For the
What
purpose
law
of
is
a breath
that?
test. I just told you what it is.
What was it? Can you repeat it for the camera, please?
It's in the Transport Operations Road Use Management Act.
Okay, and has that got a proclamation certificate with that?
It's insulated, or it's in legislation. I don't know what proclamation certificate it's got or not, but it's in legislation.
It's in legislation.
Look it up when you get home.
I have
It's
looked.
enforced by the Queen.
I've looked at it. It's enforced by the Queen. What Queen, mate? Is that the Queen of England or the Queen of Australia?
It appears that Chris is a bit of an astute man. He's looking at the law. He's asking questions on how our government achieves its authority over us, you could say. So he asks the police officer, well, if you show me the proclamation date, I'll accept the breath test. Of course, the police officer, he couldn't explain what date it was. He didn't know. Chris didn't know what the proclamation date was, because when all the laws and statutes are passed in Parliament, they're all subject to a proclamation date. It says on the bottom, subject to a proclamation date at some time in the future. So there is no proclamation date set, yet our governments and our government departments seem to have assumed the authority over us. Now, here's the strange part. There is a proclamation date. Now, when the government makes its laws, its statutes and what have you, no one actually signs off on them. They're just made by the Parliament, and it's subject to the proclamation date at some time in the future. Just like Chris Summers was asking. And his question was, can you show me the proclamation date that gave that police officer the right to pull him over on a public highway and check him randomly for a breath test? What gave him the right? Where did he get the consent to do that? Because he already knew that the police officer was a member of a foreign entity registered on Dun & Bradstreet as a non-organisation. Not a non-for-profit organisation, a non-organisation. All Queensland police cars are also registered as commercial, so therefore they are for-profit registration, which gave Chris sort of a right to ask these questions. Now, the police officer, he couldn't answer it. He didn't know. He's just doing his job. He didn't look. He doesn't know who he works for either. He just needs the money. And so what happened was the police officer could see that he wasn't drunk, couldn't answer the question. So in the end, he let Chris go. But of course, they then sent the Queensland Police Goon Squad, the Unidroit Dog Goon Squad, around to arrest him, terrorise him, and face him before the corporate tribunals. Charged with drink driving, even though he wasn't. He was charged with the highest form of drink driving, which is ridiculous, but that's what happened when we're getting involved with this new style or new type of government that we've got. Something we have to be very careful about. So they took him into court, and they terrorised him there as well, terrorised his mum, terrorised his family, just because he asked for the proclamation date. He also raised some other interesting things about Star Chamber courts, and he let the magistrate know that the magistrate could be on shaky grounds if there was no proclamation date. But in the end, he was let off with a $200 fine, no drink driving charges, no nothing. He no points off his licence. So, and let go. Very light, very lenient. But what happened in return was the magistrate did not disclose the proclamation date, which is very interesting, because the magistrate knew the proclamation date. He was aware of the proclamation date. He knew that there was a proclamation date. But what he didn't want to do was disclose how Chris Summers gave his consent to a foreign Unidroit private corporation, private law system. Because, well, I guess the private companies that now administer Australia as non-organisations are probably making a handsome little profit out of us. That's why all our fines and our power prices and what have you have all skyrocketed to such a point, because they're private companies making a profit. And those courts and those tribunals where that magistrate was, that's not a real court. That's just a military, foreign, corporate tribunal. And that magistrate did not want to disclose or let out to the Australian public, to the people, how they've been manipulated into consent. Now the big question is that you're probably saying, well, what's the proclamation date? If you believe there's a proclamation date, the magistrate wouldn't say it. The police officer didn't know it. Chris was asking the questions, Chris Summers. What's the proclamation date? Well, I'll tell you what it is. The best thing you can do with any word used, and even the small words, is go to the dictionary and have a look at the synonyms of the word. Because if you don't understand what one word may be, when you look at the synonyms, you start to get a picture of what the other synonyms are. If you can understand some of those words, then you start to get a picture in your mind at what such a word that you don't understand really is. And when you put in proclamation, it comes up as, there it is, as an account. But one of the most important things is a statement. And what comes in the mail? Accounts, statements. A statement is a proclamation. It's the synonym to proclamation. A proclaim, pro for the I claim. That's what proclamation is, Latin, is to take upon oneself. So where did that happen? Where did Chris agree to allow a foreign corporate Unidroit private law system take over his life and pull him up, bash him, bash his mum, humiliate them, put them through the courts, then not tell them anything. It's in the word. It's in the words themselves. So the day that Chris Summers applied for his driver license, went in there and filled out an application form, they won't give him the driver license over the counter because they would be tendering a counterfeit. And I'll show you why that is too. But the driver license is then posted to him in the mail, which is the statement of the driver license. And when that card arrives to Chris, when he opened and broke the seal of that statement, when he didn't really know who his name was or the type of writing that was used on that mail that rendered it as an account or as a statement, the day he opened that is the day he made a claim over the driver license and the terms and conditions that came with it. The day that he opened that mail was the proclamation date. It was a date of acceptance because he broke the seal, he accepted the ledger, and on the top left-hand corner of that ledger would have been, if unclaimed or if undelivered, return to sender. Now, in all fairness to the state, to the governing corporation, if you want to work for the administrator, if you want to drive in commerce or commercially on the highways, you do need a license to do it. But if you're travelling in an automobile that's unregistered and you stand in the correct legal standing, you don't need a driver license to travel on the highways. And this is one of the big things that's been sort of usurped or tricked in us. The corporations have in order to make sure we pay all the fines and all the debts for their profiting organisations, they're profiting organisations, they have deceived and tricked us and made us believe that we all need driver licenses. Well, a driver license only relates to commercial activity on the highway. If it's not commercial activity, well then you don't need a license for it. But they wanted to control you because the control of Australia in 1973 was handed to the Unidroit Treaty of Rome by Gough Whitlam. And the Unidroit Treaty of Rome is basically the Roman Empire. And that's the same system that Hitler operated in the 30s and 40s. So that's the sort of corporate control that has been usurped upon us through our consent. But our consent has been done through absolute ignorance of how the law system works. Chris Summers is like more Australians, becoming vigilant, becoming concerned at the treatment of Australians by our government. Our government are killing us. They inflict forced medication upon us through the water, through vaccinations, the laws. They are destroying the economy through over-governing, over-regulation on our businesses. And so if you want to work for administrating companies and any company that's registered to them, then you have to fall into line with their rules and regulations. And their rules and regulations make sure that they continue a profit. You just got to look at the Rothschilds, who are the major players in this, at the incredible amount of wealth that they have compared to the rest of the world. And where does that wealth come from? Well, they just simply own the companies that have usurped themselves into the public domain. But the reason why they're there is because of people that not like Chris don't ask questions. They happily go along and they consent to unrealistic demands from a profiting corporation that's claiming itself to be, or passing itself off to be, the government of Australia. So that's just a little bit on how the proclamations work. So as to cap it off, a proclamation is a statement, an account. And on the top, the remedy on the articles are there. If unclaimed or if undelivered, return to sender. And only you can make that claim over such an article. The proclamation date is the date that you open the article, and then all the terms, conditions, such as the driver licenses, or the councils, or the electricity companies, when you open that statement, that's the agreement that you agree to act as the debtor or the account holder of their accounts. And that's how they get your dominion. That's how they get your footprint or your equitable title and give you their legal titles. And that gives them the right to administer the terms and conditions of their companies upon you. The terms and conditions that are passed in Parliament do not relate to you until you've claimed the accounts coming from the government. And only at that time that gives such corporate entities the right to administer their will upon you. That's why the magistrate did not want to give the proclamation date to Chris Summers, because the magistrate is employed or serves the foreign corporation. So he must keep that quiet in order to maintain the profit of a foreign entity. You trust those magistrates? Well, you can, because when you know what's going on, they won't burn themselves, and they won't burn you if you know what's going on. So they'll burn the police, because the police are the first in line that offered to act as the debtors of the foreign corporations that own them.